Welcome to the Filmmaker Mixer podcast, the podcast by filmmakers for filmmakers. My name is Andrew, and I'm joined alongside my co-host Jeff, as always. Jeff and I are writers and directors and passionate about the art of storytelling. Filmmaker Mixer is a creative hub where aspiring and established filmmakers come together to share experiences, insights, strategies, and inspiration.
This episode is sponsored by Gemini Crown Tech, software for all of your production needs. Stay tuned for more information later in the show. Hello, everybody. This is the Filmmaker Mixer podcast, and today we are chatting with FM Le Sieur. He is an acclaimed composer behind, numerous film and TV projects. He worked with Ridley Scott and Tony Scott, I believe, and David Bowie on the Hunger series, and now he's got a new series he's working on. It's a heist show called The Sticky, so yes. That sounds like a fun project to talk about. So, FM, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you very much. Very, very happy to join you guys.
No, it's going to be fun. And unfortunately, Andrew couldn't be with us tonight. We're in post on a feature, and he's tied up in sound mixing right now. But it'll just be me and you, but it'll still be fun.
Know the feeling. Don't worry.
So, first I want to jump in. What inspired you to get interested in music? Did that happen at a young age? And then at what point were you able to turn that inspiration and that love for music into a career? So first, how did it start? And then how did you become a pro?
Well, it's always a list of events that you don't know why. I took piano lesson when I was a kid because everybody in my family, I was the youngest, everybody take piano lesson, but I didn't like that. I was very shy.
Oh, interesting.
And I don't know, suddenly I saw guitar and I was like, woo, and girls love guitar and I like guitar, I like girls, and it's all got together. But basically, it's really a fluke because I never thought that even a composer was a job. I was not even aware that you could make a living as this. So, I was in a band, like a lot of kids of our age, where I was in a band. And it happened as a director, a guy who was studied to be director, saw me live and asked me to do the music on his short. And yeah, that was really a fluke. So, and I already started to fiddle with computers at a time when nobody knew how it works. And I ended up to do his first short, and we won the Kodak Award something, and from that I ended up doing he did the video clip for our band. Then I started to do commercial, which I learned a lot by doing commercial, and right. Suddenly I end up by there was this TV show shot in Montreal called The Hunger with produced by Tony and Ridley Scott, and they couldn't find a composer. And my friends say, go, send your stuff.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And I sent my stuff, and suddenly they called me back and I got the gig. So,
wow.
And that was really a learning process for me because, spotting, spotting, and those days you had much more spotting than today. There were not really a lot of time track, but it was starting to have a time track was starting. It's 25 years ago. So, when Tony Scott was editing, and it was like on, really on the money. And I had to, I did the whole series except the last episode was, which was Eric Gregson Williams who did their last episode. Wow. But that's how I started. That was my school, if you want.
And for the young folks listening who might be new to this, explain what a spotting session is.
Well, spotting session. Well, normally you sit with the director or the showrunner if it's a TV series, and basically we discuss where to put music. The music should start there, and here, stop here, or no, after that word, or and it's crucial. It's change anything. If the couple kissing each other, do we start the music before they kiss or after they start kissing? It's changed the nature of a scene, and it's fascinating. And unfortunately now there's so many time you've got a lot of temp music, but not only that we they're out of time, so they send you a quick time, they send you a mail, you send back, but I'm telling you, the joy of this job is sitting with the director when we love music and we love movies and TV series and discuss dialogue and scene and ear and let's try this. That's really the love of that job in my book.
I want to circle back for a second. So in the band, you played guitar. Did you play like
I play guitar, but like on every band, you got always a guy who end up to doing everything. When everybody left the place, I was, doing the keyboard, guitar, recording, and I was always the one who ended up to doing most of the job. So it's a classic that
I'm gonna throw you a curve here. What's your favorite guitar riff of all time?
My favorite guitar riff of all time. Oh my God, there's so many. I learned with Purple Haze, Whole Lotta Love, even Taxman from the Beatles. I love so many stuff. I love that. From this, on my mind, there's so many.
Well, let me ask you something else. I'm curious when it comes to composing.
Yeah.
Sometimes music can be huge and just really wrap around the viewer in the scene, and sometimes it can be very subtle. You can really hold it back. So I'm curious, what leads to the decisions, at least for you, when you let the music do the heavy lifting in a scene, and when you let the music just be a little bit of a seasoning on the plate, if you will. What drives those decisions for you?
Well, I would like to tell you that it's only me, but I would lie. No, it really comes from when you read the script. And of course, what you call a orator, when you do music, you're a filmmaker, you're part of the gang. So the director or the showrunner, and it really starts from there. But and I'm really not a purist, so I really don't care. Whatever works with the scene, it works. So sometimes it doesn't exactly, you don't need, always a 60 pieces orchestra or 3 instrument, whatever works. So the most instrument I record for a personal project were about 35 musicians. But I never think about that when I first, I look at what works and what I got in mind. Then you share it with the director or the showrunner. And in fact, for Sticky, that was right away from the get-go, from the first conversation, because the showrunner really loved the original Fargo movie, and with the origin, not the TV series, which is very good too, but this very lush, very mysterious score. And I say, oh yes, but maybe this is not your show. Our show, can I say now? But it all the first conversation always stay in your back burner, while after that you start. So even if I use other kind of texture of instrument, this approach stay in my back burner, so I'm going to be more melodic here, even if it's a viola da gamba instead of having a whole string section, or I'm going to be more percussive here. I think it's rejoining the family of instrument, of the mood that they talk to me about it. So it's a mixture of all those things that lead me to choose the kind of instrumentation for a project.
Well, speaking of the Sticky, how did you get involved in that particular project?
It's a pitch.
So yeah, explain. Well, tell us the process. I'm curious.
It's a crazy pitch because everybody wants to have this one. I read the script and I was like, wow, this is a page turner. In fact, I was right, because if you notice, they've been nominated at the WGA, at the Writers Guild, for Best Comedy. I was reading, I said, this is so funny, this is so good. I feel it. I want to do it, which is always for young people to listen at home. It's always a good thing. When you love, you always do a better job when you really want the job. I really want, and everybody want the gig. I pitched, and suddenly, nothing. It was the strike, the writers' strike.
Oh.
And suddenly for 5 months, we don't have news. I say, I don't know. They didn't. no, I think they come back, but I have no news. And then they reach again and they say, well, but the pitch change. It's not the same thing. They want the briefing change. I say, all right. And I was willing because I really want that show. And, sometimes the beautiful thing about doing music for movies and TV series, when you really love that medium, it's the people you meet and the vibe and working together. And already in the first Zoom with the showrunner, you can feel we really get together. We had get along well. So I did a repitch. You say, well, we love what you did, but I don't think that's what we want, but we want you. So I say, okay, I'm in, I'm ready. And I was already overbooked. I already was working on 2 TV series because the timing of, when the strike end. So that's how I end up. And then I was like full on it. And I'm so happy because it's a beautiful, I'm happy of the result, but it was a beautiful project. As soon as I saw the first edit, I said, gee, I knew it works, the actors, the text that I read on the script. So that's it.
Well, what is it like when you pitch as a composer? Do you give them samples? Or do you just have a conversation? What's the pitch like?
It's a nightmare. Yeah, they tell you things like, can you do 2 scenes? Sometimes they tell you they show you 15-second or 15-second, and you choose the one you want, one scene, or you do the 3 scenes. Sometimes they tell you things. And so I don't know. I don't know. This is like, I don't know how other guys do it. You just sit, you watch, and I hear stuff, and thank God for, on our software, when you can go back and because you forgot to push record, and you start, gee, this is so good. So you go back and retrospective record, yes, because that was good, and that's how it worked. You listen back and you feel like that fit well, and that's how I started, basically.
That's interesting. And so you actually compose samples to scenes they send you.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And you sometime.
And is there like a creative brief that they say they're looking for this kind of?
Yes. They say we don't want this. We want more blah blah blah. This thing. But sometimes you try stuff that doesn't last. I try, even because we try to have this kind of rural feel and folk, but without sounding too American. So I had to try to avoid to have anything too bluesy, nothing relate more folk to Irish folk, north of France, something more this kind of folk that we've got here, because right away they want to have something that sound Canadian, Quebec, like to give at the same time to give a unique vibe, or unique is a bit maybe not unique, but a specific sound to our show. So I try with even spoon, tapping. I record with tapping of shoes. I try all kind of stuff. I use all kind of guitar. I detune, retune, and suddenly, whoop, something fit, and that's it.
So I'm curious about something else. When we talk to screenwriters, and they're working on a new idea, and they're developing the characters, the beats, the plot, and so forth. They're essentially trying to find their way into the story, if that makes sense. And so I'm curious, as a composer, what is your process to find your way into the music? I don't know if that question makes sense or not. I know you're given guidelines by the creative brief, and you've met with the producers and the directors, but at some point you've got to create something that comes from yourself, So how does that work? How do you do that?
there's a temporary track, they put some kind of music. Sometimes it works. Honestly, sometimes it really don't work. Right. But they've got tattoo on their brain so much, so you have to keep that in mind.
Right.
But sometimes the rhythm is there. It's funny because a lot of a love of musician. They hang out with musician. I never hang out with musician. My friends when I was young were all director of photography. I always hang out with guys who's doing the sign, like a frame. So I'm really, when I see movement on the camera, that really got me in the mood. So right away at Sticky, they're at black panel, and I say, okay, I have to get something. And then there's a pan of camera. I say I have to slow, so it give me already a rhythm or a kind of a way to setting a mood, and that really helped me a lot to look at the camera. And that's what we do. And it's not of course sometimes you can write music and by fluke you put it against picture and like it worked, but most of the time we have to all those information fuel you. Can you say that? It's a fuel to help your creativity because it set up the mood, the tempo. And after that, the thing on the Sticky, they were full of barrel. So I said, okay, I have to find a way to get some texture of metal. So I try to find every bank, everything I could find with every kind of bow barrel, hit with brush, with all kind, with super ball, everything. And sometimes, it give you, and then I say metal. So for this, it helped me a lot. I've got a dobro guitar, so metal. So it give me this. So when when you feel like a little, you get excited anyway. When you feel like you got like oh, this is the path of this, and you put it against picture, and the rest, well, it's, I think all the guys or women or everybody who do this job, that's the particle that we cannot touch. When you start to play and you feel like this is working. So, and that's, I don't know, for screenwriters, sometimes probably you feel like, oh, now that's working. How you judge, that's the magic. Why you judge that this thing that I just played, it's rubbish. That's something I didn't. I'm a dropout from university. I never finished my course in music, but I remember that the best friend of the composer is their garbage can. You have to be able to say, now start over. There's no point to spend time on something that at a point you have to throw away, and that's it.
And sometimes writers, they struggle, to hit those pages, and then sometimes they hit a zone where it just comes naturally, and it's almost like taking dictation rather than creating because the characters are talking to them. Does that happen in music where you hit a zone and it's just you struggle with something and then something clicks and it just pours out of you? Does that ever happen, those moments?
Well, yes and no. I have something different. I'm writing stuff. I can be all day long, and then I always feel like it's the next morning. The next morning I listen back and I say, oh my God, gee, what I was thinking, this is so bad. And other time I say, yes, gee, I was fine. I was right. Very often it's the next day I have the feeling, because when you're too close to it, you don't have it's really the next day that you play and you're like, oh my, that's working. But yes, sometimes you've got this excitement, especially if it's a up tempo. No, that's not true. Even sometimes when you that's it, you got the feel like as you play, maybe as you said, that writers they can hear the dialogue, and as you play you feel like, oh my, this is working.
Right.
But for me, the test of the next morning is my best trick.
And you were mentioning temp tracks earlier. A lot of times filmmakers will use temp tracks just to get the rhythm of a scene when they're editing or try to find the right mood. And oftentimes people can get attached to those temp tracks, and which is, sometimes good, sometimes bad. I'm curious, have you ever had an experience where you had a temp track and they were like, this is kind of the idea we want, but you had a radically different idea that totally worked, and you were able to flip that temp into something totally different?
I don't remember. I don't remember. You have to use temp track because there's no point to hit your head on the wall and saying, oh yeah, I don't want, that's part of reality.
Sure.
So when I hear the temp track, I say, okay, what they like in this? It's this the texture. It's okay, obviously the rhythm because they cut the scene on it. It's the texture, this. But once I did what you just said, but you cannot avoid to do, especially at the beginning, because there's so many people from the producers to the network. You cannot do this at the beginning, but I have to do the close to the temp track and spar, and on the side I do my own stuff. And sometimes they say, no, the first one we like it better. I say okay, and normally 3 episodes after I re-put my stuff and they love it. They don't realize that was exactly that they were not sure, but
right.
That I verify. And I'm not saying that in a pretentious way.
No, I understand.
I just think it's nature of their so used, and there's always we have to work with the nervosity, everybody on the beginning, of a project, but after a while, and sometimes also the opposite. Sometimes you have to admit you did something, you feel like this is so good. They say, well, FM, can you just move this and change? And you're like, really? And 4 times out of 5, it's better after.
Sure.
I have to admit, because they've been in the project before we are. We arrive very often at the middle, at the end, so very often they're closer to the project, but you cannot ignore, basically, you have to at least try to do their idea first. Yeah.
Sure. Well, I'm curious, over the time of your career, has your approach to creating music changed at all? I know, technology is always changing. Music used to be more traditional. Now it can be, like you were saying, you were finding barrels and, hitting balls against, metal things to create the soundtrack. I'm curious if you think your approach has evolved in a certain way from when you started to where you are now.
The thing I could say, it's more the time. We have less and less time.
You mean in terms of turning around the project?
People expect, so people expect you to turn around faster than before, but the rest, I don't know. Everything is fast. Everything is faster. You can obtain. That's a good question.
Well, just for context, how fast are we talking? I mean, like in the terms of your work on Sticky, how quickly do you need to turn around music for an episode?
Oh boy. I don't. It's been a year already. It's always around 9 days.
Wow.
It's around 9 days, but I don't think it was only 6 episodes. So it's I done show where you got 10 episodes and 10 episodes of an hour, and that's much more. Sticky was a pretty beautiful project because right away, because also because of the pitch was so long, because of the strike, I had time to really think. So when we came back and they changed, I had to do a totally different score. So I changed my mind totally, but I don't know. It feel like after one episode, I was right in the zone.
Right.
Without pretentious, because it's not always like that. I was really right in the zone. And meaning that right after that, I was able, right after the first episode, they were already not using the temp, but using my music as the temp. Even, and sometimes surprisingly,
interesting.
Yeah, sometimes they put this there. I wrote this for another character, but I like that twist. I'm gonna re-thing and so because I don't know if you saw if you watched the show, but there's the big scene with Ruth was Margot. The big scene at the beginning where she cut a tree and she carried a tree, a big log of tree across the city and everything. And that was, I wrote a long piece of drum that, I recorded a drummer, but everything was I wrote all the scores, and where he stopped, he go back to do all kind of and they love that, so they reuse part of this, and it became like a skeleton for a lot of scenes after. So that's
interesting.
fun. And it's not always like that. So after that, even if I didn't have that much time, I never felt like, like sometimes you feel like, oh my God. And you read this probably if you, it was a beautiful project, Sticky, for this. I didn't have any problem,
Well, before we wrap up, for people who want to follow, I know it goes quickly. It goes quickly. So for people who want to follow your career and see what you're up to, are you available on like social media, or how do people track you down and follow your work?
On SoundCloud, you got a lot of things that I put on SoundCloud. You've got some score on iTunes and Spotify, but on SoundCloud, I'm on Facebook. I'm not a super social media. I put a bit of this and that, picture of that, but I'm not like, sometimes, like project like Sticky, in a way, I sign a non how you call that, an
NDA.
Yeah, that thick. So it took a year before I was able to share anything. But on my Facebook page, you see part recording of the drum, by the way, you can see the scene, and it's easy to find. There's a lot of stuff around.
Well, very good. Well, FM, it's been lovely chatting with you. I really enjoyed the conversation. And when you're working on something next and you want to jump on the show and chat, just hit us up.
Thank you so much. I'm recording right now for a movie like that.
Awesome. Well, let's circle back and chat about that in the future.
Anytime.
That would be awesome. You take care, my friend.
Thank you very much.
This episode is sponsored by Gemini Crown Tech, owned and operated by Stephanie Moore and Stephanie Harrison. We at Gemini Crown Tech have covered all your production management needs with our proprietary software. Please visit our website at www.geminicrowntech.com and use the code FMP for Filmmaker Mixer podcast listeners, so we know how you heard about us.
Thank you for listening to the Filmmaker Mixer podcast, a podcast created and hosted by filmmakers Jeff Stolen and Andrew Lamping, and produced by Melody Lopez.
Our theme song was composed by Stephen D. Bennett.
Make sure to follow or subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to us on, and stay tuned for future episodes.